Hey everybody, it's John Halpin. Welcome to the Tuesday edition of Pickwatch Live for Week 3. I'm here with Ryan Fowler. Hey man, so did you watch that boring game last night? It was pretty boring. The Seahawks are not good, which we talked about.
Yeah, I think if the Seattle Seahawks heard any type of commentary on shows like ours or just read anything by the pundits nationally, they are living up to those expectations. I mean, they're exactly, to borrow a phrase from Mr. Green, they are who we thought they were. And it's so funny. Even Russell Wilson doing what he does in the fourth quarter, right to the script. Just some garbage points for fantasy owners there. Flirting with the, you love it, backdoor cover. There, but I mean, it's ugly time there in Seattle, and Pete Carroll is still one of the more intriguing coaches in NFL lore, the way he handles this stuff.
Yeah, they're not good. Remember, their defense, plus they had some of the guys remaining from their great defenses, a couple of them are out. So it was a disaster for them. I mean, they don't know. Okay, so here's my weird thing from last night. Mm-hmm. And I was going to get to this later when we talked about the Seahawks. Chris Carson.
Yeah.
So he cedes some carries to Rashad Penny, which we all thought was going to happen in the summer. And after the game, Carroll says, well, we were kind of shorthanded on special teams, so Carson had to get used there a lot, and he was gassed, so he didn't use much in the second half. And you're going, so he's your lead back, and you used him on special teams to a point where he couldn't run the ball. I mean,
the Browns are interested in hiring Pete Carroll based on that philosophy. Things that don't make sense, send them to Cleveland. You might have a future there, sir.
This weirdness is what I thought it was.
Yeah.
All right. So let's go to the big news. Well, there's a couple of big news items. We're going to do one right now. Carson Wentz back for the Eagles, which is necessary, I think. I mean, we were seeing Foles' limitations the last few weeks. I know he had those 2 great games in the playoffs. He's a really good backup, maybe a low-end starter. The Eagles really needed to get Wentz back. So they're going to host the Colts this week. Right now, they're favored by 6, over-unders 47.5.
Yeah, Nick Foles, what a great story last postseason, right? Kind of lifting all the boats there in the sea for the Eagles. But here's the thing with the Eagles right now. Their receiving core is banged up. They have no running game. I think Corey Clement is their best option right now. Jay Ajayi had to leave that game, came back, seems okay, I guess. But now we'll see with where Wentz is, right? He might come back and be active. He might be 90, 95%. But it's kind of a reeling time there for Philadelphia. It's not even the hangover. We know we don't like that cliche, but I'm very interested to see what Wentz can do with what he has with the injuries. I mean, he can go to Zach Ertz all day, but then what? Corey Clement dump off and run? That's fine. But how much can they really get going? Because that was, if anything shocked me the most, it was what the Eagles did in Tampa over the weekend.
Yeah, I think to what you said, some details. Mike Wallace sounds like he's out for the year. Alshon Jeffrey's still not back. So Wentz is not going to have his full complement of weapons. I like Corey Clement too. I wish they'd use him more, but they're going to try to pound it with the Jai and mix up the backs. But I guess the idea, well, in addition to get Wentz back as fast as we can, which it was logical, it's a bit of a soft landing spot, or softer than normal, I think, playing the Colts at home, even though they did play well on Sunday.
Yeah, we'll have to chop that up too. I mean, again, it's just funny how you pull on one thread and then another thread gets yanked too when you're talking about what the Colts did against Redskins versus what they have coming up with the Eagles. I mean, there's just so many moving parts there because now we have to ask the question, who are the Colts?
Right. I don't know. I still think they're not good. And the Redskins, because the Redskins played so well in that first week, even though they're playing Arizona, and then they just threw up that stinker. So I'm not sure. They're pretty mediocre as well. So this past week, I went 10-5-1 straight up, 8-8 against the spread. Boring. You went 8-7-1 straight up, 8-8 against the spread. So right now, the leaders on, if you're looking at Pickwatch at the expert picks, I'm going to pull this up for you. Screen share, Ryan.
Oh, I love it.
Screen share.
Visual aids for the kids.
Yeah. So Pete Prisco. Actually, it's not Pete Prisco. This is the against the spreads. And leading here is
Vic. Oh wait, no. You sorted backwards.
Sorry.
There we go.
I had this up. I thought it was Pete Prisco from CBS. Vic Tafur from The Athletic.
Who's hilarious, by the way. I've interviewed him and had him on a podcast in the past. Funny guy.
Is it Tafur or Tafer?
Tafer, T-A-Y.
Vic Tafer from The Athletic, who's in the Bay Area, right?
Yep.
20-11 against the spread so far. Jamie Eisenberg from CBS. One year I was doing a fantasy draft with Jamie Eisenberg, and he was sitting next to me, and he kept sniping me. So I was on Twitter just typing that I hated Jamie Eisenberg. He didn't see anything. It was just sitting there, and he wouldn't see it until it showed up in his Twitter feed.
Who's there in the 6 hole, John? Who's number 6 in these rankings?
It's me.
Oh, it's you.
It's me. Yeah, I'm here. Yeah, 18-14, not bad this week. You know what I hated this week?
Lots of things.
That I made the late switch to the Texans. I liked the Titans, and then it was like, oh, Mariota's out, and the tackles are out, and I can't bet these guys.
We can chop that. We'll get to that. We'll chop that up. No problem. Yeah. Because I think you have the right intention, and we'll talk about that.
Yeah, and the straight up here, we have got, let's see. Yeah, Pete Prisco's here, 22-8. Since there have been 2 ties, it's weird. 2 weeks we have 2 ties, so we throw those out. So he's 22-8. Let's see. 2 of the guys from Fansided, Jill and Jake from Fansided, 22-8. Jonathan Jones down here in Charlotte from Monday Morning Quarterback, also 22-8. And for the fans, by the way, I'm just going to do the against the spread numbers. Who's that? Jetburn, and what is that name? Chaos something? I don't know. Chaos Factor. Yeah, 21-11. And the next guy down, Ty's Weberding, 21-9. So it's pretty good. They're 21-11 is pretty good against the spread after 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll take it, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Everyone, just remember on Pickwatch, by the way, the teams that took out a lot of people against the spread, Texans, Eagles, Giants, all were over 70% for the experts and all lost. So I went out on the Texans and Giants, but I had the Bucks. If you have questions on Twitter, everybody, I'm at Halpin37. He's at Freelance Fowler. The main Pickwatch account is at Pickwatch. For Pickwatch this week, we track all the expert picks, NFLPickwatch.com, as you know. We'll have shows on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Sunday mornings. So please check those out. Ryan and I are here on Tuesdays. Josh Katzowitz on Thursdays with me. And I go by myself for 15 or 20 minutes on Sunday at about 11:45 Eastern. After the inactives are announced, finally, Josh has a weekly column previewing the week. He has 3 games. I think the games just scare the crap out of him. The fun game and the game to bet your life savings on. So he does a good job in those every week. Okay, let's get to week 3. Thursday night, your Browns.
My Browns.
Hosting the Jets, and Sam Darnold. Sam Darnold, he had some struggles the other day, but he had some things to like. Sam Darnold's going to be a good player, and I think he might be a good player sooner rather than later. What do you think of this game? I think the Browns get their first win.
Well, they could very easily be 2-0, right? I mean, what they did in New Orleans, that defense is legit. And I know we can poke fun at Zane Gonzalez all day. I did on Twitter. But I will say this. Tyrod looked a little bit more efficient. The loss of Josh Gordon is one less target, even if he was healthy, injured, whatever. Now you're looking at – they just signed Rod Streeter, for heaven's sakes. So you have Hollywood Higgins. You have Callaway, who made one of the greatest catches I think the Browns have had since 1999. That was an amazing catch, and I jumped and almost hit the ceiling.
It's a great throw.
It was. I mean, that was legit. That was a legit NFL play, which you can't say a lot about the Browns, and then they did what they did. That said, I think – man, Darnold looked good. Anunwa, who was a missing link last year because he was injured with a neck injury, comes back. Man, I want to take the Browns. They are leaving little to be desired right now. Man, short week. There's really no rushing game for the Browns. I'm going to take the Jets. I'm still optimistic. I know you said at the preseason, you seem pretty optimistic. Yeah, that's kind of waning after what just happened. I'm going to take the Jets to win that game because I still think Darnold, like you said, better sooner rather than later. I think it's going to be a close game. That spread scares me, but I think the Jets are going to win that game.
Okay, I think so. I thought the Browns played the Saints close because people look at this and go, "Oh, what happened to the Saints?" I think the Browns played them close because they're a pretty good team. Like you said, the defense legit. Myles Garrett is just tremendous.
Yes, please stay healthy. Like right? That's what I mean. Just please stay healthy because you look at these guys and it's like, man, put them in the Hall of Fame now because if you keep this momentum, and then you see things like what happens to Jadeveon Clowney and J.J. Watt after he has 4 straight years of crazy stats there, and then you lose him for 2 years, and what is he? That's this NFL, man. What is it, 3-year window is the average lifespan of an NFL player? Is
something like that.
Shorter? Yeah. Because, I mean, these guys are just so huge, beating each other up each week. Just stay healthy. But, yeah, if the Browns do win, it's going to be because of the defense. The offense is lacking in many areas.
All right, let's go next Sunday. First game up, Vikings host the Bills. Here's a dare. How big of a point spread are you willing to? You think the Bills are bad. How much is it worth to you? The spread is 17. The over-under is 41. The spread is 17. LaShawn McCoy might not play. Cracked rib cartilage, torn rib cartilage. They're not sure what his status is for this week. Apparently, he's played through it before. So basically, it's how bad do you think the Bills are, and what's it going to take to get you to take the other side? What do you think? Would you lay the 17?
I lay the 17. The Rams just won, 30-0 over the Cardinals?
Yeah.
Right? So it's doable. These top teams, I mean, come on, you got to give them some credit. Josh Allen put up some yardage, but without McCoy, they're just going to load up against the pass. They have no rushing game. So, right. I mean, and they don't have any receivers either. I think Zay Jones was their leading receiver last week with like 50, 60 yards. So I think the Vikings, what the Vikings did in Green Bay was a little bit of a head scratcher, but Cousins is still putting up points, and I think he'll do the same thing against the Bills. They cover the 17.
Yeah, I think I'll give the points there too, because the Bills are Josh Allen's in a really tough spot.
He is, and it's brutal because they just need McCoy's at the tail end of his career. He seems to get hurt every third game every year now, and then it becomes a roller coaster the rest of the way. But it doesn't help when an offensive lineman lands on your side, which is what happened to McCoy for the injury this time.
All right, next up, Packers Redskins. So this is Packers at Redskins. Packers favored by 3. Are we good with Rodgers now? Are we past worrying about him after Sunday?
I think there's still reason to be a little bit worried. Did you see the brace he had on his knee? That thing was military grade. I mean, they were protecting that thing like it was a 9-figure investment, right? So
right.
I think, I'm gonna hold my breath a little bit on that. But I like what I saw, right? I think that running game. They get Aaron Jones back this week, I believe, to go along with Jamal Williams.
They do. Yes.
Yeah, so the backfield will be a little bit more robust, if you will. And again, that passing attack there in Green Bay is delicious. Rodgers dragging one leg still has a lot of options in that passing game where those guys will be making plays for him when he can't get out of the pocket.
The one thing I want to figure out before I pick this game is, as noted earlier, I don't know what to make of the Redskins. It was like 2 different teams the last 2 weeks.
But to your point, and it's so funny, Adrian, you called it semi last week with Adrian Peterson. It's like he had some good games there in Arizona last year, and then he fell off. I mean, if you're not running against the Colts rush defense for anything, there's an issue there. And it could be AP's he's old. I mean, he's going to have good games. He's going to have bad games. He's not Frank Gore as far as consistency because there's a lot more miles on what AP did, especially after having the knee injury. Frank Gore's just a freak of nature to do what he's doing at this part of his career. But again, going back to what we talked about with Corey Clement in Philadelphia, Chris Thompson, look, did you see his stat line? Yeah. Chris Thompson's stat line, what was it? 13 receptions. That's going to be consistent throughout the year. Alex Smith has to get Chris Thompson involved in that passing game to have a chance to beat the Packers this week. But that's neither here nor there. It's just a fact of the matchup.
I was talking to someone else on another podcast I do yesterday that there were 9 players with double-digit receptions this week.
Yeah. And a lot were running backs.
Yeah, Thompson, McCaffrey, and Barkley. Was there another one? I don't know. Out of the 9, there were 3 or 4 running backs. Yep. So, and it wasn't Kamara. So actually, it's funny. The Redskins. So the Saints, the Falcons gave 14 catches to McCaffrey, and they get Kamara this week. But that's a function of the defense being good and not giving up things downfield. So I don't know if that's a good thing that you're checking down and running back 14 times.
All right, but I think the Packers cover that game. I mean, the Redskins didn't really do it for them. I mean, anybody can look good against the Cardinals. If you're struggling against the Colts the way they did, when Aaron Rodgers comes to town, that's going to be a little tricky.
If you have to bet this week, I would say take the money line on me picking the Redskins because when in doubt, I pick the home dog. So you should bet on me picking the Redskins. Not on the Redskins, on me picking the Redskins. That's what you should take. So, all right. Broncos, Ravens. The Ravens favored by 5 at home. Over-under is 43. Wow, Philip Lindsay. Who saw that coming? That's good stuff. I mean, they're going to use a tandem backfield and, forgetting the fantasy implications, which we talk about elsewhere sometimes. Philip Lindsay looks really good for the Broncos.
Yeah, and it came against the Raiders. So take it a little with a grain of salt. I mean, they need something, right? I mean, C.J. Anderson of 3 years ago isn't walking through that door because he's with you with the Carolina Panthers. So, yeah, I mean, they need some. It's it's just weird though. That and Case Keenum, what he did in Minnesota last year was great. putting him in that system, and he's going to target Emmanuel Sanders 15 billion times. But like Demaryius Thomas isn't even like a factor anymore. That guy used to be a week in and week out legit guy when Peyton was there. And now it's just like, hey, Demaryius Thomas had like 4 catches for 47 yards. And it's, I mean, this matchup is going to be kind of a snooze fest. Like, I don't think I'm going to go out of my way to really want to watch this one. I think that's a lot of points for the Ravens, though, because I think the Broncos defense is still pretty good. I'd probably take the Broncos in that matchup just because we're still trying to figure out what Joe Flacco wants to do with that offense. And he had some nice things in the Bengals game, but not enough to feel a lot of confidence for that many points to be laid down.
Right. Injury situation, Mac and Broncos right tackle Jared Belcher, concussion. His status is undetermined. C.J. Mosley, big one for the Ravens. What's his injury? I forgot what his injury is. Yeah. Status is TBD. He got hurt last Thursday. No, I think it was a knee. Might be a hamstring. I'll look it up. I'm sorry about that. But we're not sure if C.J. Mosley is going to play. That's a big one for the Ravens if it doesn't work out. All right, next up, Chiefs, Niners. Chiefs favored by 6.5 at home. This is their first home game, actually. They've got the 2 wins on the road. So I talked about the Bills-Vikings spread being, here's a dare almost. Chiefs over under 56. I joked with someone the other day. I just want to put in a blanket over on the Chiefs for the rest of the year. And I think that's going to pay off. But 56, that's asking a lot, Ryan, isn't it?
Niners put up 30 against the Lions, and the Chiefs defense is probably worse than the Lions. Going to Kansas City, not an easy place to play. So maybe that comes down a little bit. But is Patrick Mahomes' statue going to be ready by the time they kick off on Sunday? Because that's ridiculous, what that guy has done. I mean, you go into Pittsburgh and you push those guys around the way he did. Was he 22 of 25? I mean, that's just remarkable. Plus, the funny thing is, last week, they're like, oh, he didn't get Kelsey involved. That changed quick. And he still managed to get a 36-yard touchdown pass to Tyreek Hill. Sorry, it wasn't over 50 yards. There was a over-under, will Tyreek Hill get a touchdown over 50 yards? Pretty close. But, I mean, he's spreading the wealth around. Chris Conley's involved. I mean, they're going to cover that 7. I think the 49ers are still a work in progress. I'm not ready to – again, this is what we did with Dak, right? I mean, build the statue. Let's get crazy. NFL coordinators are going to adjust. He's not going to go out there. But he's still going to go out there and put up enough that they're going to be dropping near 30 a game, right? I mean, this isn't slowing.
Yeah. I mean, the weapons are tremendous in the passing game. I mean, Kelsey, Watkins, and Hill, and he's still got Kareem Hunt. The run defense might be a little better than we thought. And I don't know if you saw, Bud Dupree on the Steelers had some interesting quotes about Mahomes. He said on Sunday he said when he got up to the line, he said, he's a young quarterback, and we thought we'd be able to disguise coverage and trick him. And when he got up there, we saw that he knew what he was doing. That he was able to sit back and read the defense well. And I find the quotes from Bud Dupree. They're interesting. They made you think that it's an argument for sitting for a year.
Exactly.
I tend to think that that's not a great idea. Like, I think the Broncos should play Baker, but this was an argument. It sounds like Mahomes is really ready. There's not going to be any growing pains right now. He's, after that 1 year off, he's raring to go, and he's playing terrific. So
yeah, not only
insane.
Yeah, not only waiting a year and holding the clipboard and watching film study to read those defenses, having Andy Reid in your back pocket doesn't hurt either.
Yes.
I mean, Andy Reid gets picked on a lot for a lot of reasons, but he's got his quarterback ready and knew when to sell on Alex Smith, even though he was as consistent as they come. Andy Reid in that front office made the right move.
The criticisms of Reid are probably more game management than scheme.
Yeah.
So
and definitely not after a bye.
Right. Okay. Next up. So would you go over? You going to go over?
I'll go over.
Yeah. You're just going to double down on over until it doesn't work.
Well, what was it? What is it? What your friend said? You shared the story last week. You
go NFL.
Go NFL. Yeah.
All right. Giants, Texans. Texas favored by 6. Oh boy, this looks easy because of the way the Giants are playing, and because of you think of the defensive ends. If Clowney's back to playing for the Texans, it seems like a bad matchup for the Giants. But to be quite honest, right now you look at the Giants, you think everything's a bad matchup because they just look. Poor Eli didn't look downfield. He just looked for Barkley because he knew the rush was coming, and that's bad. So it's on the line, but it's not all on the line because he's got to be able to make some plays, with some bad protection, and he doesn't look like he can.
Right, and I love the stat. I think it was either Pro Football Talk. It was in the Twitterverse somewhere. I can't remember who had it first. I know it's that race to do it right. But I thought the stat about Barkley being the only running back in history to have 14 receptions and 80 or fewer yards because, again, he couldn't break free. But to take a step back from this game, I did some in-depth on this for another project I was working on yesterday. So I looked at this game a little bit closer than the rest of the slate. And, the Giants have a lot of things wrong. This game opened at 3.5. Texans favored by 3.5. By the end of Sunday Night Football, it shot to where it's at now, 6.5, 7, depending on what book you look at. So, I mean, the betting public saw enough what they saw on Sunday night. We're like, I'm just going to take the Texans. I'm going to ride it because Deshaun Watson's a better quarterback with Will Fuller in. The stats back that up. His QB rating is like 30 points higher when Will Fuller's been in the lineup the last 2 years. So that's great. However, it's a ton of points. And the one thing that the Giants have going for them in this matchup, their secondary is good. I know a lot of things are wrong. Their secondary is good. So maybe it's not so bad to see what Watson did last week and struggle here a little bit out of the gate. So maybe they slow him down a little bit in the passing game and they have to lean on Lamar Miller. On the flip side, the Giants have great receivers, Ingram, Shepard, Odell, and then Barkley on the short dumps. The Texans secondary is chewed up. I mean, they don't have a lot of depth there. Kevin Johnson is out. So you could see the Texans rolling in this game. And then Eli almost did it in Dallas on Sunday night where they almost covered late. So I could see that happening again just because there's so many points being laid right there. What stinks, though, is for the Giants, Dallas, back train, come back. That's not fun, and that might wane a little bit on their ability to do that.
Yeah, it's a big – but you're right. It's a big number for a team like the Texans that's just okay. Did you see Watson's play at the end of the first half, at the end of the game, by the way?
Yeah, that was boneheaded.
Oh, my God. Oh,
that's where you're like,
Yeah, that was rough.
Yeah, that's Zane Gonzalez approved.
All right, and speaking of the Giants secondary, Eli Apple hurt his groin Sunday night. Not sure what his status is yet. Yeah, but you're right. Their defense played pretty well, other than they gave up that big, long touchdown second or third play of the game, and after that, they really settled down and played well.
Yeah,
so,
Miles Austin. Miles Austin had a great touchdown there.
Tavon, Miles?
I'm still not sure on that one. I'm flipping a coin on which one that was because Tavon Austin doesn't score touchdowns in the NFL.
No, he does now, apparently. Someone likes using him. All right, next game up is Saints at Falcons. This is a good game. Falcons favored by 3. What's up with the Saints? They lost badly, even though the score didn't indicate it. They lost badly to the Bucs. Then they had a nail-biter against the Browns that maybe they should have lost. Probably they should have lost.
They should have lost that game.
I think they played two teams that are better than people want to give them credit for. Now, that said, that game against the Bucs, that was a bad one. It wasn't really close. They were down by 20-something at one point. Are the Saints going to rebound? I thought coming into the year they were one of the best 2 teams in the conference. Now it's hard to tell.
Yeah, I mean, there was some moments last year when the Saints went on their hot streak that their defense lifted that team, and that's just – I mean, it hasn't been the case. I mean, you can't really judge of what the defense was against the Browns in the state they are, especially, I mean, even with the deep ball at Callaway late. I don't know what you can glean from that. But maybe the Buccaneers are better than we thought with Fitzpatrick. Who knows? I mean, that could be smoke and mirrors right now until we see what they decide after Jameis comes back. So judging from that game, the Buccaneers, I think, are better than we think they are. So that game against the Saints is also something to take into consideration when you look at the final score. But NFC South matchups, they're tricky. I mean, I think I don't know what you ended up going with the Panthers game, but I took the Panthers. I thought there were too many points, and then Falcons did just enough to win that game. Julio Jones still not involved as much as I think most people think he should be. He must just be getting smothered. I'm not breaking down film because that would entail a lot of time that I don't have. But I mean, looking at box scores and breaking down what I see during Sunday coverage, it's just like, man, Julio Jones has to be a little bit more involved because the Saints defense is regressing to the mean a little bit. And I think that's where they run into some trouble in this matchup because Tevin Coleman, maybe he's better than Devonta Freeman. Falcons have a lot of weapons that are going to keep coming at you. And Matt Ryan might not be the sexiest quarterback to watch play, and especially with the head scratcher in week 1. But against the Saints team that's kind of in a pickle right now, I think I like the Falcons in this one.
All right. I think I'm not sure yet. What happened with Julio was actually James Bradbury, who I keep waiting to make that step forward. He might be making it. He actually played very well against Julio on Sunday. And Marshawn Lattimore is another good corner that could do the same. But I mean, Julio is going to get his against anybody when they target him. The Falcons, they shut down the deep end. Basically, Cam was checking down a lot.
Yeah, McCaffrey had 22 targets.
Yeah, so it was kind of interesting. I thought the Falcons' defense maybe gave up a little more than I expected them to, but their offense was, their offense did pretty well. So I think this might be another high-scoring game here. I mean, remember, the Falcons have the two big holes with the injuries in the middle of their defense,
right?
Which is not going to help. So
not with Alvin Kamara coming at him. I mean,
right.
Alvin's going to probably hit 10 receptions this week with ease, I would think, because that was the other thing. I think Vegas set the over-under on Kamara's receiving yards at like 750, and I think he finished with 800 last year. He's already close to 200 through 2 weeks. So, right. I mean, his workload is not being thinned out because the defense isn't playing as well as I think the Saints thought that their defense was going to play, and they needed a little bit more Kamara and Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I'm undecided on who I'm going to take for this game. The 53 over-under sounds about right. I think I might go over because I think that's the kind of game it might be. Bengals at Panthers here. This spread surprised me. Panthers by 3, over under 43.5. I think the Bengals get a lot of respect with that point spread. Maybe I'm overrating the Panthers because I'm too close to them, as you can see there. But I figured the Panthers are a better team than the Bengals, and the rule of thumb is 3 points for the home field. So basically, the spread is saying that this is a toss-up game. Other than the home field, which is interesting to me. I didn't think the Bengals were regarded that well.
But again, missing Joe Mixon with the amount of production he's had through the first 2 weeks, that changes this Bengals team. I believe Joe Mixon accounted for 33% of their offense through the first 2 games. So him missing this game because of the arthroscopic knee surgery scope, and he's going to miss a few weeks. Now you look at Gio Bernard, and Gio hasn't really been involved this year, and then in years past, it's been Jeremy and Gio. Gio can do some things. However, I don't think he's going to be doing it at the level that Mixon did at the first 2 weeks. So then you lean on Andy Dalton. And sometimes when Andy gets pressed into these situations, you get bad Andy because his TD to interception ratio right now is 6-1. This time last year, it was 0-4, 0 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. This is where I think Dalton regresses a little bit because he doesn't have Mixon providing the 33% of the offense. And I think there's an opportunity here for the Panthers to pick this one up.
So I read a stat somewhere, again, no attribution because I forget who it was, that Dalton's now 16 games in under Bill Lazor as offensive coordinator, 31 touchdowns, 9 picks. Mm-hmm. It's pretty good.
It's pretty good. And it doesn't hurt that you're getting wide receiver 2 production, which he hasn't had in years past. It's always been A.J. Green. It's always been Tyler Eifert when he's been healthy. Now you have Ross, and you have some other Boyd.
And Boyd played pretty well the other day.
Yeah. So having a receiving core instead of just a receiver and a tight end, that's a big thing. Plus Mixon's ability to catch out of the backfield.
All right. Next up, I think I'm going to take the Panthers there, but maybe that's a homer pick. We'll see. All right. Raiders, Dolphins. Raiders are getting 3 at Miami. 2-0 Dolphins. Woo! Yep. So we got an early start here for West Coast team. Not good. Again, we talked about the statistical impact of it. That's a long trip down to Miami from Oakland. That's just just realistically, whatever the stats say, that's a long trip.
And the Raiders are reeling, and they're grasping for some type of – they played well in Denver. They should have won that game. You lose on the McManus kick. That stinks. Carr, very efficient. I think the Dolphins' defense is a little undersold right now, and that's a big reason why they're 2-0. Granted, their matchups against the Titans in a 8-hour game is a little hard to take away from. They shut down Darnold for the most part. I think 2 interceptions in that game. I like the Dolphins in this one. I'm not sure the Raiders – I think the Raiders are already getting a little fed up with the way things have gone here the last 3-4 weeks between Mac. No pass rush is what Gruden verbally said in post-game comments. So we've got to figure a way to get some pressure on the quarterback because if Tannehill has time to throw, they're going to do just enough to win that game.
Yeah, Tannehill's playing fine. He's
exactly
doing the game manager bit, and it's going well. So
Kenyon
right.
Drake had a little bit more, like you mentioned, he was on the field more in week 1, even though Gore had more yardage this past week against the Jets. Kenyon Drake was definitely more involved in. I can't remember what his yards per carry was, but it was something that I think we can build on.
11 for 53 or something like that, right?
Yeah, and going back to what the Broncos rookie running back, his name escapes me, Lindsey, what he did, something to lean on in that matchup and look at is that Kenyon Drake had some big games last year, so don't be surprised if he has a big game against the Raiders, especially with all the travel considerations involved.
So, but when do you get – so an 0-2 team, in which we have a decent amount of them, they're more likely than not a bad team, right?
Yeah.
But when do you – see, sometimes I look for they're not going to go 0-16, so where are the wins going to come from?
Right.
I usually try to find them at home. But when do you go with the desperate team? You know, every matchup's different, but this is one you look and you go, the Dolphins, look, they're 2-0, but you know, weird game against the Titans at home with the Lightning and all that stuff, and Mariota got hurt, and then they beat the Jets, who they're no world beaters. I know it was a road win. It's nice, good for the Dolphins, but when does the desperate team rear its head and have to pick? Like, this is one of those spots where you look and I think maybe this is a contrarian pick. I think people will be all over the Dolphins here, especially with that low spread, and maybe this is a spot for the Raiders.
If Derek Carr plays like he did against the Broncos defense, you could be right.
All right. We're going to go to Titans-Jags. Jags are favored. This was a late one. The line was off on Bovada because basically, look, the Titans, Mariota's status is still to be determined. He was active but didn't play because I think they only have 2 quarterbacks on the roster. Yep. Their top 3 offensive tackles were out, and they won anyway. But now they go to Jacksonville, and oh my gosh, Blaine Gabbert playing at Jacksonville, they're just gonna. You would think they're gonna destroy him, right? And he didn't do much. I mean, he didn't make mistakes. It was more check down, you know, simple, short, low risk passes for the most part. But this scene, even with the 7, if Mariota doesn't play, you have to take the Jags and give the points.
Absolutely. So let me pose this question to you. Would you like Blaine Gabbert at 100%, or would you like Marcus Mariota starting against the Jaguars early in the season at 85 or less percent?
Is this for gambling purposes, or am I a Titans?
Yes, for gambling purposes.
I think I'd rather have Marcus Mariota.
I
don't hate Gabbert.
Right. But you have to say that, right? Because it's true.
Yeah, I don't hate Gabbert, but this is just not a great spot. He's limited compared to Mariota, I think.
But here's where the Titans run into a big pickle with Blaine Gabbert having to play. They were expecting a lot more out of Derrick Henry these first 2 weeks, right? Derrick Henry has been bottled up, and yes, played the Texans and whatever the Dolphins are right now in the up and down lightning delay game. But Derrick Henry was supposed to break out. I know they bring in Deion Lewis as a change of pace back, but man, they need more out of Derrick Henry sooner rather than later. It's not coming against the Jaguars. So even if you have Mariota out there, and another thing, and again, this is one of the games I did a deep dive on, if Mariota plays, which he probably won't if I had to guess, he's not going to have Delaney Walker because he destroyed his ankle in week 1. So his favorite target's out. The Titans are in a very tough position this week against the Jaguars, where I picked the Jaguars to cover. I saw it at 6.5 to 7. Watch back. I don't think it matters, but I just don't like 7 points. I think this is where the Titans season could come apart very quickly because their rushing attack is a little bit suspect right now. Mariota's elbow, he can't make some throws. Vrabel said it in his press conference on Monday. He could do some things, but some throws give him pain. That's not great to hear coming out of a weekend and saying that he was, quote unquote, emergency available. I don't think he plays this week. You get Blaine Gabbert, Jaguars win by 10 or more.
And the Titans were pulling everything out of the hat. They did the fake punt that they got the touchdown. They were wildcatting with Derrick Henry. I mean, it was just every trick in the book, and it worked. So
and that's where I think that's where I give some credit to the Texans, because without the fake punt, Texans win and cover, and there's just no issue there. These are the type of plays where gamblers pull their hairs out, because it's those plays where you lose your money, is when you have a fake punt go for what it did. So
66, yeah.
Yeah, it's just that's where a pick six, a turnover deep in territory, that's where you lose the against the spread money when the other side goes and does these game-changing plays, if you will. But the Texans had enough in that game that I think they're better than we think they are right now.
Okay. Next, we're going to go. Oh, by the way, Jags starting left tackle Cam Robinson torn ACL out for the season. Rough break for them.
TJ Yeldon.
Fournette status, we don't know.
Right. And I think TJ Yeldon can carry the load at 4 yards per carry if Fournette can't go. A little Corey Grant here or there.
Okay. Chargers at Rams. Still no Bosa expected for the Chargers, last I checked. So the Rams are favored by 7 here. The Rams are so good. I like the Chargers. I picked the Chargers as my AFC Super Bowl team, mostly because I was bored with the Patriots and thought that would be a bet. That's a no fun pick. So the Chargers, first weekday was a stinker against Kansas City. Second week they beat the Bills, and it's fine. I don't know. I almost want to give the points, because the Rams are so good that I almost want to give the points. I think the Rams might be this completely unstoppable juggernaut.
I'll take the Rams, and I think they cover. Chargers, they're gonna have one of those Charger games. I think Phillip Rivers is gonna put up some points, but they haven't faced a pass rush like what the Rams have. That's going to be tricky for Phillip Rivers, because Phillip, I don't know if anybody who's watched the Chargers game through Phillip Rivers' career, when he gets rushed, things get ugly quick. I don't know that he throws it into the ground, calls timeout, stomps his feet. It could actually be pretty comical watching Phillip Rivers this weekend, because it's going to get frustrating. Phillip has done some great things the first 2 weeks against the Chiefs as they try to come back in that game, and then efficient. Austin Eckler, one of my favorite storylines for the first 2 weeks. He's been very involved in that offense because, again, you hear Keenan Allen, Melvin Gordon, but Austin Eckler has been pretty darn consistent and was the leading rusher, not Melvin Gordon, even though Gordon had the 2 touchdowns against the Bills. They have a lot of pieces. I just think, like you said, the Rams are this unstoppable force right now, and they're going to be able to cover that point, that high spread.
Okay. So how good are the Chargers? Are they average, slightly above average? Where are they for you?
I'm going to say above average. I mean, if you're fading the Patriots, you have to like where the Chargers are at right now. It comes down to Bosa getting healthy and getting back on that field, because they need him on that field to be a difference maker and kind of change the landscape of what their defense is. Their offense is set, right? I don't think you could ask for more of what their offense is doing right now, as long as all those people stay healthy, which with the Chargers is always a question mark. They've had brutal injuries for the last decade, it seems like. One big player is out at some point throughout the season. It happened with Hunter Henry this offseason. They bring back Gates. But I think the key to the Chargers continuing to that rise in the AFC as a threat to the Patriots is getting Bosa back, because like his little brother at Ohio State, he makes it, and I know he got hurt this weekend, but he makes a difference. And I think that's what they need to continue this rise in the AFC. Okay,
so I'm just wondering that even though I said I want to take the Rams, I try to look at it. Well, everybody tries to look at everything logically, right? Of course. But I look at this and I say, if this is an above average team, how many above average teams do you want should get 7 points from anyone?
But
that's a big number for a team that's as good as the Chargers are.
But the Chiefs defense stinks, and the Buffalo Bills defense isn't great. So I'm challenged to say, okay, through the first 2 weeks, Phillip Rivers has felt the wrath of a defense that threatens him. So now you it's kind of like putting a donut on a baseball bat. It's kind of that thought process where it's like, whoa, where did all this come from? I think that's what Rivers is going to run into this week, and it's gonna kind of be, oh my gosh, Aaron Donald is just dominant, this and that. I can't remember, is Barksdale out? He seems like he's always hurt for the Chargers on the line. But it's just, there's always some holes there on the Chargers O-line, and I think that's where Phillip Rivers runs into a little bit of trouble because of the defensive pressure that the Rams are going to bring.
All right, next up is Cowboys at Seahawks. The spread, Bovada had no line last night. I saw this morning, Seahawks favored by 1.5 at home. Over-under is 42. Seahawks coming home from Monday game, but they're home. No biggie. I'm not sure. This is a toss-up for me. This is going to be a late, not head scratcher for me to pick the winner. I keep saying that the Seahawks are not good, but now they're a 1.5 favorite at home against a team that's I mean, the Cowboys are kind of right?
Yep.
I think I probably take the Seahawks here. And I know I'm rattling off favorites for this whole lineup, so that's easy or pretty, typical. But I think almost anybody at almost a pick 'em at home against the Cowboys is a decent bet.
I didn't see it in my fine print of my contract. Does Pickwatch allow us to fade games? Because I don't want to touch this one, right? Like, I think that's what you're getting at too. It's like, man, if you have to fade a game, because you can't go out there every time and say, man, I feel great about this one. This is not one of those games. What Russell Wilson does in the fourth quarter scares the crap out of me and scares the crap out of a lot of gamblers. And I think that's what you're going to run into with this game is, what is that fourth quarter defined? How is it defined? Because the Cowboys, to your point, are meh. Zeke had a nice game against the Giants. He'll probably have a nice game against the Seahawks. But
Dak had a nice game.
Yes. Yeah.
I thought he played well. I mean, he ran a lot. They did a lot of drink if Chris Collinsworth says RPO, but they did a lot of that. They actually they opened it up a little for Dak that way, and I thought he played well.
Yeah, and again, Seattle's home field advantage is legit, even though the complete DNA of their team has been overhauled in the last few years. That's a game I just don't touch. I know it's passing the buck. I mean, if I had to pick, I think Russell Wilson finds a way in the fourth quarter, but I probably wouldn't touch that game.
All right, yeah, I think I'll take the Seahawks there most likely. All right, Bears at Cardinals. Bears favored by 5.5. Over-under's 39.5, pretty low. Bears coming off a Monday game, which can't be discounted. The Mac played better and played more on Monday night. This one, I almost, as much as I tend to like home dogs and try to look for traps and things like that, the Bears are pretty much the superior team here. I mean, the Bears are pretty good, and the Cardinals seem very bad. And is it just that simple?
I think so. Tariq Cohen did get injured last night, so his status is up in the air for week 3. I can't remember if it was an ankle or a knee, but he tweaked it, I think, on special teams. So, again, he's a factor. But, yeah, I think, man, I knew this was going to be fun. Trubisky and Allen Robinson, what do you have, 16 targets last night, 13?
14, yes.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's going to get going. They figured a way to get Trey Burton involved. That offense is clicking, and the way that the Cardinals defense has played underachieving through the first 2 weeks against the Redskins and then the well-oiled machine of the Rams. I think Trubisky is starting to gain a little confidence. Now he's got a top tier, he's got an all-pro wide receiver. He's got Jordan Howard, and then you have the defensive pressure that the Bears are bringing. All signs are pointing to the 5.5 is a little nerve-wracking, but maybe the Cardinals are just going to lay down this year because they haven't figured a way to get David Johnson involved in 2 weeks. That's a problem. Larry Fitz, I had to exit the game, and I think he finished 3-24 in a game where the Cardinals were passing. Where are the points going to come from, I think, is the question for the Cardinals. So to cover 5.5, when you ask where are the points going to come from the Cardinals, that'll lead me to pick the Bears to cover.
All right, I'm looking at the Josh Rosen entry point. Let's see. Week 4 is home for Seattle. Week 5 is at San Francisco. Week 6 is at the Vikings. Week home 7 for Denver. There's not a natural opening here.
No. That's a tough stretch, too.
You can do it any time here. I mean, next week, home for Seattle. That might be it.
Yeah.
So it's got to happen. There's no point to play. Unless you think Rosen's completely not ready, there's no point in playing Bradford at this point.
Did you see the video of him yawning on the sidelines? I know people yawn, but it's unfair to cut away. But he isn't wrong. I mean, yeah, I'd be a little gassed, too, watching that product.
Dude, I yawn when you're talking sometimes, so I really wouldn't put the tape. Wouldn't criticize anyone.
These are my peak hours, 9 to 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, next up's Pats Lions on Sunday night. Pats favored by 7. This is the desperate team spot for me. I don't think the Lions are all of a sudden horrendous. I know the coaching change has been bumpy. We're not in the locker room, so we don't know for sure. It certainly sounds like it's been bumpy. They came back pretty solidly against the Niners. I mean, you shouldn't be down 30-13, but they came back well. On a Sunday night game, getting 7 points at home, I wish if the Pats had won on Sunday against the Jags, I would be all over the Lions. But now I look and I go, well, the Pats would have to go 1-2 for me to pick the line straight up. So I don't know about that. But with 7 points, I gotta take the Lions.
I'd agree with that. I think, again, they're not as bad as we think. They're pretty bad. They're not as bad as we think. And Matthew Stafford is going to move the chains, right? He always finds a way with that receiving core. He's Galladay's stepping up a little bit. They got Marvin Jones involved in San Francisco. I like what they have to put up points because that bend do not break Patriots defense broke against Blake Bortles. So they're going to break against Stafford at home is my thought. LeGarrette Blount got ejected from that game. So again, that running, do they even want to put a running back out there? They're not going to use them efficiently or at all or enough to make a difference. So they should just pass 60 times a game and get their money's worth out of Stafford. A ticked off Tom Brady, Belichick going against one of his former guys. There is that factor because Belichick's going to be already inside Patricia's head. So I think it'll be close, but I think 7's too much for, like you said, the whole team.
Yeah, agreed. Injuries in this game, by the way. Darius Slay for the Lions, concussion. We're not sure about his status. It's 2 weeks in a row, I think, for him. Pats, concussions. Trey Flowers, defensive end. Patrick Chung, their safety. Also, Josh Gordon, by the way. We think Josh Gordon's going to be ready to play this Sunday if his hamstring's okay.
Right, and if he avoids promo shoots or whatever. I'm so mad at the Browns for letting him go. I know it's frustrating, this and that. But again, he's not suspended. So
right.
I'm sorry?
No, go ahead.
No, you fight through all these suspension and everything, and then the breaking point is he hurts his hamstring at a promo shoot, which I will love to hear one day that was a team-sanctioned promo shoot. Because Josh Gordon goes out of his way not to go on Hard Knocks, and then he injures his hamstring in a promo shoot. Something doesn't add up there. I just think it's an odd time to let go of them. I think Josh Gordon probably won't be ready if it's a hamstring. Those things usually take a few weeks. Plus, he was dealing with one at the end of training camp, so they probably want him as healthy as possible. But it shows, and my buddy Nate brought this up, it's like it shows the desperation of what the Patriots need in that receiving core to get an upgrade because there's just not a lot there right now.
Yeah, he could be interesting there, but we chase Josh Gordon that way. We always dream on Josh Gordon. It's been 5 years, and hey, maybe because it's the Pats it works, but I wouldn't bet on it. Let's put it that way. Last one, Monday night, Steelers at Bucks. 53.5 is the over/under on this one. Steelers favored by 1.5. Will the Fitzmagic train come to a screeching halt? Will it continue rolling, or something in the middle, and he'll just play okay?
Something in the middle. He's got to regress, right? But he goes against it. See, this is what's so befuddling. He goes against the Eagles defense and lights them up. And this is one thing that I think should be a bigger storyline, and it probably is in certain channels. His rapport with Deshaun Jackson is awesome. You have these two veteran players, and they're working in a way that Jameis and Deshaun didn't work or as efficient and as well. That's big because Deshaun almost missed the game due to a concussion last week. He got cleared, I think, on Friday.
Right.
So, I mean, Fitz, I always thought Fitz got a raw deal. I think he's better quarterback than he gets, and he gets picked on for the Harvard thing. And then you see what Mahomes just did to the Steelers secondary. Fitz is, even though he's older, he's going to know exactly. He's going to look at what Mahomes did, and he's going to study that, and he's probably going to try and replicate it because he has similar weapons in their receiving core. I think the Buccaneers can win this game. I know the Steelers tried to come back against, and Roethlisberger put up big numbers without Antonio Brown scoring a touchdown. But, man, Buccaneers can win this game. Steelers have shown little the first 2 weeks.
So we could be looking at 3-0 Bucks with Ryan Fitzpatrick, with Jameis Winston coming off his suspension.
And he's not getting his job back.
Not like this. No. You can't take Fitz out. If they win this week and Fitz plays well, I mean, you obviously can't take him out.
Right. And even if Fitz goes, let's say, 250, 260 yards, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and they lose a close one, I still think you keep him in there. It depends on how involved. I mean, that's the other thing about what Fitz is doing. He's spreading the wealth. Evans had a bunch of targets, and then I had it, and I lost it. Who's their third receiver? Godwin. He's getting involved the first 2 weeks. O.J. Howard's getting involved.
All right, he's really getting involved. You're right. They're using him a lot more than they did last year.
So Peyton Barber isn't even needed in the backfield, and this Fitz is showing us a lot that there's still something in the tank. And this is what Josh McCown did at times. over the last years. Fitz has done it over the years. I like the Bucs in this game because the Steelers, maybe this is their breaking point. They have all this talent on offense. Maybe they could, and that over could definitely hit because they have all this talent on offense, but their defense to do what they did against Mahomes, that's a little bit suspect.
Yeah, that's a Monday game. Some of the Monday games you look at and you go, oh, I've had a long weekend. I don't know if I want to watch. That's a game I want to watch.
Yep.
So, yeah, and you talk about Peyton Barber, he's almost there to keep people honest, you know? They don't run well. He's just kind of a plotter. And he's there to keep people honest. Well, we have to run sometimes. We can't throw every down. So hopefully he'll get 3.5 yards. And that's what Peyton Barber's there for. But yeah, they are letting Fitz gun it. But I keep saying, my favorite phrase that you always quote back at me about water reaching its level, he's still Ryan Fitzpatrick. This will not continue all year, certainly. Go ahead.
That Eagles defense is good. They're a good defense, and he goes out there and torches it. And that's where I'm like, is that a Super Bowl hangover? Because, they just destroyed Matt Ryan the week before. I mean, that defense is good, and Fitz chewed it up. Is it because they were playing in Tampa? I don't understand what happened to that Eagles defense against Fitzpatrick in a game where Fitz was going to come down last week.
Yeah, and that sounds like the OC and Fitz are getting along really well, too. So, yeah. All right. Ryan, anything else we missed? Anything else you want to touch on? We didn't talk about the drop kick from the Seahawks kicker.
Yeah, that was cool. His onside was a little disappointing at the end of the game. It kind of just went through the wickets there, but hey, I'm all for new things. That was a cool change of pace because when you get really stale of watching the Browns lose in interesting ways, that was up there though. It was nice to see end the week with a little drop kick Murphy, and we'll see what happens with the Thursday night game against the Jets. Man, it'd be nice to win, but that beer fridge might stay closed.
By the way, my favorite play of the week was Pierre Garçon blocking on Matt Breida's touchdown.
Yes.
It was awesome.
Did see that on the Red Zone channel. That was, textbook, right?
Yeah. This is why I said to someone yesterday, this is why everybody loves Pierre Garçon. This is why when you hear people, NFL players talking about playing with Pierre Garçon, that they love him because he does things like that. And it was tremendous. Every kid playing wide receiver should watch that play.
Yep.
Because my son, I used to play tackle football for a couple of years. He's 10, and he was a wide receiver. He's a small guy. And I kept telling him, look, you're at your age, they're not going to throw you downfield a lot. A big part of your job is to block. So we were watching that play the other day, and I was, look at that play. Look at what he's doing.
Study it.
Yeah, do that. All right, folks, find us on Twitter at jhalpin37. He's at Freelance Fowler, and at Pickwatch is the main account. You can also find us on Facebook. And you might be, if you're not watching this on YouTube now, find us. We have a YouTube channel. All our clips. By the way, the Thursday show, Josh and I talk game by game. And then after the actual full-length show, which is 45 minutes, 50 minutes, something like that, we chop it up into individual game discussions. So if you only want to watch us talk about, say, the Steelers and the Bucs, you can watch 2 or 3 minutes of that. So we have that by usually late Thursday on the Pickwatch YouTube channel. So please check that out. All right, that's it. That's Ryan Fowler. I'm John Halpin, and this is it for today's edition of Pickwatch Live. I'll be back on Thursday with Josh Katzowitz to make our picks for the Week 3 games. Thanks, Ryan. See you next time, everybody.